Hello and welcome to the Main Cave. Now today's video is a follow-up on a video I made a few weeks ago on the excellent Attack Shark X11 mouse. I've had a lot of questions in regards to the differences between this and the other Attack Shark mice, and in this video I'm going to share with you the difference between the Attack Shark X1, the X3, the X6 and the X11. So some of it will be fact-based and some of it my own opinion, and I'm going to tell you which one I've decided to stick with at the end of the video. So if you're new here, we make regular videos on technology for your smart home, so please do consider subscribing as we may make a video to make your life easier. I don't want you to miss out, so do hit subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Right, let's start off then with the most obvious difference, and that is the price. The X1 comes in at £34.99, the X3 more expensive at £44.99, the X6 even more expensive at £45.99, and the X11 same price as the X1 at £34.99. Next up is what's in the box. Now for all four mice it's exactly the same. You obviously get the mouse, you get a charging cable, a small instruction manual, but what differs here is that the X3, it doesn't come with a charging dock like the other three, but more on that later. Third up is connections and what each one connects to. So the X1 and the X3 are both wired, they both have USB and they both have one Bluetooth slot available. The X6 is a bit better with wired, a USB and 3 Bluetooth slots, and the X11 comes in at a wired, USB and 2 Bluetooth slots. Now fourth is up is the weight. The website claims the weight of all of these, but I found them to be a little bit different than stated, and here's what I found. The X1 comes in at 54 grams, the X3 56 grams, the X6 again 56 grams, and the X11 at the heaviest at 60 grams. Now number 5 here, this is a big one. Literally, it's the size. And as you can see, there's one that stands out at being bigger than the rest. So here are the sizes. The X1 is 122mm by 60mm by 38mm. The X3 is 119mm by 60mm by 39mm. The X6 is 119mm by 60mm and 42mm, with the X11 is by far and away the biggest at 129mm by 63mm by 42mm. Now number 6 here is one for the gamers, and that is the sensor. The X1 has the Pixar 3395 Pro, which says is their flagship sensor. The X3 and the X6 have both the middle of the range Pixar 3395 sensor, whereas the X11 on paper it has the worst one, the Pixar 3311 sensor. Now for your average gamer, you may not notice a difference between them, but if you are sensitive to change, then the X1 is the one to go for. It is the best out of the four. I haven't really personally noticed any difference between the 3395 and the 3311, so for me, either of those I'd recommend if you didn't want to go for the X1. What I can tell you is when looking at DPI, which we'll look at next, there is a difference. So as I said, 7th is what I mentioned as DPI. If you're someone who cranks up the DPI, you'll see here that one goes way higher. The X1 uses the Pro sensor, and the DPI is almost double that of its regular version. So the DPI then, the X1 goes up to 40,000, the X3 and the X6 both at 26,000, and the X11 only goes up to 22,000. Now 8th is another important feature, and that's the polling rate on the wireless. Fortunately though, they're all hit 100 Hz, which is good enough. So number 9 and number 10 are stats based on moving the mouse, and here you may be sensitive if you've experienced various gaming mice. When flicking and sliding a lot, you'll be able to tell the difference between the highest and the lowest. I don't think the X11 at the slowest is necessarily bad, it's just the X1 feels great. So 9th is the acceleration speed. The X1 is 60G, X3 50G, X6 50G, and X11 40G. And as I said, 10th is the movement speed. So the X1 is 700 IPS, the X3 is 650 IPS, as well as the X6, and then the X11 is 400 IPS. Now, number 11 on my list is the battery, and this is quite interesting because here the times vary quite differently. So the X1 claims only 65 hours, the X3 and the X6 claim 200 hours, and the X11 claims 65 hours. Now, you'd think that's okay, and even 65 hours compared to 200, it doesn't really matter. So for the X1, the X6 and X11, you can just plonk it on your dock. The X3 has 200 hours, great, but it doesn't have a dock, which is a bit annoying. Personally, I'd either take X1, X6 or X11, even if the X6 nearly has 3 times the battery of the X11. Now, number 12 is the extra buttons. I'm a fan of 2 buttons on the side, and so my pick here is between any of them really. If you like extra buttons, you're catered for well. So the X1 has 2 side, 1 top and 1 wheel. The X3 has 2 side and 1 on the wheel. The X6 has 2 side, 1 top and 1 wheel, whereas the X11 has 2 sides and 1 on the wheel. Number 13, speaking of the scroll wheel here, all feel pretty different, which I was quite surprised about. But here's what I've noticed. So X1 is the quietest, feedback but not much, rounded, rubber ridged but smooth button. It isn't really light to press. The X3 is quiet, is definite feedback. It feels rounded and smoother on the finger, and it is quite tough to press. The X6 is the loudest of the 4, a lot of feedback, flat feeling, texture on the finger, and it's easy to press. Whereas the X11 is quiet, definite feedback, it's rounded, it feels roughest out of them all, and the button press is quite tough. So 14 then is the left and the right click feel. I put this on and there's a real difference to how it feels under the finger. So X1 is concave. It's comfy, but it may be a little bit too steep on the insides for me. The X3 is slightly concave, pretty easy to use. The X6, larger than the other 2 due to the shape, it feels wider. And the X11, it just feels flat, although I did get caught on the edge a few times. Now 15th here is a good time to show you the click sounds, so get your headphones on and these how each of them sound. Okay, number 16 is the skates. Now to start off, I had to change the skates on the X11 as they were terrible. Once I had changed them though, it improved way better. X6 is next worst. Feels a bit sluggish with some catching, but I'd probably replace these as well. X3 is next. It's okay, better than the X6 and the X11. I could live with it, no problem really. But compared to the X1, yes, the X1s just feel great. Nice and smooth on all surfaces. So conveniently, in the order from best to worst, the skates are X1, 3, 6, then 11. Next up, number 17, and that is the charging dock. Now, I've touched on this before. I think it's really handy to have one of these, but here's my thoughts on them all. Instantly, the X3 is out as it doesn't come with a charging dock. The other 3 all do, and they all do the same thing as well. Have a USB port at the back to plug into your PC and a place for the USB dongle to be attached. So the X1, it has RGB around the base, which can be changed by a weird fingerprint image. This completely ruins the look for me. It's to symbolise where you need to press, but it just looked weird. Anyway, press it and the RGB changes. Magnets are good, easy to put on and off. X6, this is a nice dock, hardly visible, RGB around the base, which is changed by pressing the, yes, you've guessed it, the fingerprint image. But this time this image is well hidden. Easy to put on and off. But one thing I don't like is the RGB doesn't change when charging like the other 2. It stays on the pattern that you set. The others change white when charging, which I prefer so I can have a visual aid as to whether it's on properly. Finally, the X11, nice dock with the RGB around the base, which you change using a button on the bottom. However, the mouse sits quite low to the desk, and if you aren't at an angle, you won't be able to see it charging. It's a small thing, really. Also, this is the only dock where the USB dongle is attached to the front. There is no positive or negative to this other than aesthetics. And the magnets are good, easy to take on and off. So 18th is the software. Each mouse has its own separate software program. There isn't a unified software package, which is okay for the most part, but it does mean if you do change your mouse, you'll need to download it again. So just go onto the ad-infested website of theirs, navigate past all the pop-ups and download the software. Here I have all 4 open up, and as you can see, there aren't too dissimilar. The X1 is pretty different in layout to the other 3 though, so let's have a look at that first. You can change all the buttons, the key settings, the key sensitivity, and then just save it. Then along the top is your DPI, a few extra parameters to change, and macros. For the X3, X6 and X11, they all have the same layout. The button setting top left, then profiles under that, battery level indicator on the right, and the DPI and some other settings underneath. These settings, however, do differ. The X6 has everything, the X3 doesn't have light settings, and the X11 doesn't have lift off nor motion sync. I've left an image of everything it does or doesn't have, so you can take your pick. 19th then is the difference between gaming and work. Here is where subjectivity really comes into play. I prefer the X11 by a country mile for work. It's larger and comfier, but for gaming, they all do pretty well, as I said before. Unless you're sensitive to the differences between sensors, then you won't really have a problem with any of them. I've gamed on them all, and I found them all to be okay for casual gaming. But also, the number of buttons may also sway your decision. 2 on the side is okay for me, but they also do have macros to stick on a spare button if you wish. I may just go for the X11 at work and swap to the X1 for gaming. I'm not sure yet. So which one have I chosen to keep then? And please remember, as I said, it's massively subjective, as what's important to me may not be important to you. But having used all the 4 in the past few weeks, I'm sticking with the X11. It was close between this and the X1, and if I'm honest, I may just hold on to the X1 just in case. The spec is way better on the X1. It's quite a bit smaller in the hand, and the dock annoys me. Personally, I'd say get the X1, as it just has pretty much everything you need. But if I've mentioned anything in this video you prefer, then maybe you go for it. Disclaimer is, I've never had any issues with any of them spinning or missing a beat, but remember them, all of these are cheap budget mice, and you may come across issues with any of them in the future. If you are considering the X3, just bear in mind there's no charging dock included, which you may not think is a big deal, but trust me, it is. The X1, X6 and X11 all have their own dock, which makes charging super easy, and more importantly, gets your USB dongle near to your mouse to help with connection. The X3 and X6 sit in the middle, not really doing anything badly, but also not excelling either. The X1 is only let down by its size, and the X11 doesn't really have the top end specs. So that's it then. I hope that's been of use. Do let me know if you want me to do any more comparisons. I'll happily take up any of your suggestions. I hope that's been of help. Please like, please subscribe. Until the next video. Bye bye.